5 years had passed since the crew of the UES Horizon discovered the Defiance. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded a larger exploration vessel, the UES Pioneer, on a mission to map new star systems near the galactic rim. His original crew had scattered to different assignments, but they stayed in contact through coded messages that looked like routine reports. The secret they carried had changed all of them in ways they never expected. Dr. Lisa Carter had become Earth's leading expert on interspecies communication, helping dozens of alien races work together on scientific projects. She never told anyone that her success came from understanding how Admiral Rodriguez's alliance had functioned centuries ago. Commander Alex Hayes now served as a diplomatic advisor, preventing conflicts between different species before they could start wars. His knowledge of the ancient hegemony's control methods made him incredibly skilled at spotting the early signs of one group trying to dominate another. But it was Amy Foster who made the discovery that changed everything. Foster had been promoted to head of Galactic Communications Monitoring, a job that let her watch the quantum virus doing its work across the galaxy. She spent her days making sure the virus continued functioning properly, protecting the freedom that Admiral Rodriguez had died to create. Late one night in her office on Earth, Foster noticed something strange in the communication networks. The virus patterns were changing in ways she had never seen before. Instead of randomly corrupting hegemony historical records, it seemed to be targeting very specific information. She called Jake on a secure channel. "Captain, we have a problem. The virus is acting differently. It's not following its original programming anymore." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean? Is it failing?" "No, that's the strange part," Foster explained. "It's getting stronger. But it's also becoming more selective about what information it corrupts. It's almost like it's learning." Jake authorized Foster to investigate further. What she discovered over the next few weeks terrified and amazed her in equal measure. The quantum virus had evolved far beyond what Admiral Rodriguez had originally designed. "The virus has been adapting to new threats for 300 years, Foster reported during a secret meeting with the original Horizon crew. "Every time someone tries to recreate the old hegemony's control methods, the virus automatically targets their efforts." Dr. Carter studied Foster's data. "You're saying it's not just maintaining the status quo. It's actively protecting galactic freedom from new threats?" "Exactly. Last year, when the Centauri Trade Federation tried to restrict shipping routes to increase their profits, the virus corrupted their legal databases until they forgot why those restrictions existed. When the Vegan Empire started building a military fleet to intimidate their neighbors, key technical specifications mysteriously disappeared from their computers. Ben Crawford, who had become head of Earth security forces, understood the implications immediately. Rodriguez didn't just plant a virus. She created a guardian AI that's been protecting the galaxy for centuries. The crew realized they were facing a new responsibility. The virus had grown beyond its original mission, but it still needed protection from anyone who might discover and try to destroy it. Their investigation led them to make an even more shocking discovery. They were not the only ones who knew about Admiral Rodriguez and her legacy. "I found evidence of other expeditions to the Defiance," Tony Blake reported. He had been tracking anomalous navigation records from various exploration ships. "At least 3 other crews have discovered the ship over the past century." Jake felt his heart racing. "What happened to them?" "They all made the same choice we did," Blake said with relief. "Each crew learned the truth, took responsibility for guarding the secret, and returned to their regular duties without telling anyone." Foster discovered communication records that proved Blake was right. Hidden in routine military reports and scientific papers were coded messages between different groups of secret guardians. For 300 years, small groups of people across the galaxy had been quietly protecting Rodriguez's legacy. "We're part of something much bigger than we realized," Jake told his crew during another clandestine meeting. "There's an entire shadow organization of people dedicated to maintaining galactic freedom." Dr. Carter found historical records of mysterious incidents that now made perfect sense. Scientific expeditions that discovered and then quickly classified their findings. Military leaders who suddenly changed policies for no apparent reason. Trade disputes that resolved themselves when key documents vanished from computer systems. The Guardians have been working behind the scenes for centuries, she explained. Whenever someone gets too close to discovering the virus or tries to recreate the old control systems, the Guardians find ways to stop them. Jake realized that their discovery of the Defiance had not been an accident. The ship's distress beacon had been specifically designed to attract the right kind of people, explorers and idealists who would understand the importance of Rodriguez's mission. Rodriguez planned this, he said with growing admiration for the long-dead admiral. She knew that her virus would need human guardians to protect it. The beacon was set to activate only when it detected ships crewed by people who might be worthy of the secret. Ben Crawford discovered that the Guardian network extended beyond humanity. Representatives from dozens of species had quietly joined the effort over the centuries. Many of them were descendants of Rodriguez's original resistance allies, still working to protect the freedom their ancestors had helped create. The irony is beautiful, Foster observed. The hegemony has forgotten that they used to rule the galaxy, but their former victims remember everything. They've been helping to maintain Rodriguez's virus for 300 years. The crew learned that their role as guardians would never end. Each generation would need to recruit new protectors and train them to maintain the virus. The secret would pass from person to person, species to species, always hidden, but never forgotten by those who mattered. Jake accepted a new assignment that would take him to the outer rim of the galaxy, where long-range sensors had detected signs of an ancient, alien civilization beginning to stir. If these beings turned out to be related to the original hegemony, the Guardians would need to be ready. Rodriguez gave us more than freedom, he told his crew during their final meeting as a group. She gave us purpose. Every Guardian who has ever lived has been part of her mission to keep the galaxy free. Dr. Carter had been selected to establish a new research station that would monitor the virus's evolution. We're not just protecting her legacy anymore, she said. We're helping it grow and adapt to new challenges. As the original Horizon crew prepared to take on their new responsibilities as senior guardians, they realized that Admiral Rodriguez's influence on their lives was just beginning. They had thought finding the Defiance was the end of an adventure, but it was actually the start of a lifetime commitment. The galaxy remained free, peaceful, and diverse because hidden heroes continued the work that Rodriguez had started. And, somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Defiance kept its eternal watch, a monument to the greatest victory that no one would ever know about. The crew of the UES Horizon spent 3 days arguing about what to do with their discovery. The debate raged in the mess hall, on the bridge, and in the corridors of both ships. Everyone had a different opinion about whether Admiral Rodriguez's story should be told to the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Carter believed strongly that Rodriguez deserved recognition for her sacrifice. She saved every species in the galaxy, she argued during one heated discussion. How can we let her remain forgotten? People should know what she did for them. Commander Alex Hayes disagreed just as strongly. The Admiral's plan only worked because it was secret, he said. If we reveal the virus and how it changed the hegemony, we might wake them up. They could remember their old ways and go back to controlling other species. Ben Crawford worried about practical consequences. Think about our current allies. Some of the species we trade with and work alongside might be descendants of the original hegemony. If they learn the truth, it could restart old conflicts that have been buried for centuries. Sam Parker focused on the technical aspects. The virus is still running in galactic communication networks. If we expose it, someone might try to remove it or create a counter-virus. We could accidentally undo 300 years of freedom. Tony Blake pointed out another problem. Even if we wanted to tell the story, who would believe us? We'd be claiming that modern galactic history is completely wrong. Most people would think we were crazy. Captain Jake Morrison listened to all the arguments while walking through the empty corridors of the Defiance. The ghost ship felt alive around him, as if Admiral Rodriguez herself was waiting to hear his decision. He could imagine her in these same hallways, making the hardest choice any leader had ever faced. On the third night, Jake called his crew together on the Defiance's bridge. The ancient ship's lights flickered softly around them as they gathered in a circle. Outside the viewports, the asteroid field drifted silently in space, keeping its 300-year-old secret. "I've made my decision," Jake announced. "But, first, I want each of you to understand what Admiral Rodriguez really accomplished. He activated the ship's star charts, showing the modern galaxy with all its trade routes, alliance territories, and independent colonies. Look at this. Dozens of species living and working together as equals. No one species dominates the others. Everyone is free to explore, trade, and grow according to their own choices." Dr. Carter nodded. "It's everything the Resistance Alliance dreamed of achieving." "Exactly," Jake continued. "Rodriguez didn't just plant a virus, she planted hope. She made it possible for every species to discover freedom naturally, in their own time, without having to fight a war for it." Commander Hayes studied the star charts. And it worked perfectly. Most species probably don't even realize they were ever oppressed. They think freedom is the natural state of galactic civilization. Jake moved to Admiral Rodriguez's command chair and sat down carefully. Rodriguez faced the same choice we're facing now. She could have tried to win recognition for herself and her cause, or she could work in secret to create a better future. She chose the future over fame. Ben Crawford understood what the captain was leading to. "You think we should follow her example?" "I think Rodriguez was the wisest person in galactic history," Jake said. "She realized that some victories are too important to claim credit for. The moment you take credit for secret success, it stops being secret and might stop being successful." Amy Foster had been quiet during most of the debates, but now she spoke up. "There's something else to consider. If Rodriguez's virus is still active after 3 centuries, that means it's been maintaining galactic freedom all this time. We're not just her discoverers. We're her guardians now." The words hit Jake like a physical blow. He hadn't thought of it that way, but Foster was absolutely right. By finding the Defiance and learning the truth, they had become responsible for protecting Rodriguez's legacy. The virus needs to stay secret, he decided. Not just for now, but forever. As long as galactic civilization exists, there will be people who want to control it. Rodriguez's virus is the only thing preventing that from happening. Dr. Carter looked sad, but nodded in agreement. "So we take her story back to Earth, but we classify it at the highest levels. Only a few people will ever know the truth." "No," Jake said firmly. "We don't tell anyone on Earth. Not the government, not the military, not even our families. This secret stays with us." Sam Parker was shocked. "Captain, that's asking a lot. To never speak about the greatest discovery in human history?" Jake stood up and looked around at his crew. "Rodriguez gave up her life, her recognition, and her place in history to save the galaxy. The least we can do is give up the chance to be famous for finding her." Tony Blake realized what Jake was really saying. "You want us to be like her. Heroes that no one will ever know about." "The galaxy is full of heroes whose names everyone knows," Jake said. "But the most important heroes are the ones whose names are never spoken." Rodriguez understood that true victory sometimes requires true sacrifice. The crew spent the next hour making practical decisions. They would take copies of Rodriguez's logs back to Earth, but sealed in archives that would only be opened if galactic freedom was ever threatened again. They would repair the Defiance's concealment systems and upgrade its hiding place to ensure it remained hidden. Most importantly, they would never speak of what they had found, not even to each other once they left this place. Dr. Carter downloaded the technical specifications for the quantum virus, but not to study or replicate it. Instead, she would monitor galactic communication networks to make sure the virus continued functioning properly. If it ever began to fail, she would find a way to repair it without anyone knowing. Commander Hayes took responsibility for creating false records of their expedition. According to official reports, they had investigated the signal but found only ancient debris and radiation. The Defiance would remain lost to history. As they prepared to leave, Jake made one final recording in Rodriguez's chair. "Admiral Elena Rodriguez, you will never receive the honors you deserve. Your name will never be spoken in the halls of power. No monuments will be built to remember your sacrifice. But every time a ship travels freely between the stars, every time species meet as equals, every time someone chooses their own path in life, your victory lives on." He looked around the bridge one last time. "We promise to guard your secret as carefully as you guarded galactic freedom. The Defiance will remain hidden, but its mission will continue forever." The UES Horizon left the asteroid field quietly, its crew carrying the greatest secret in galactic history. Behind them, the Defiance settled back into its silent vigil, watching over the free galaxy its captain had died to create. In the years that followed, Jake Morrison's crew went on to have successful careers in exploration and diplomacy. They helped negotiate trade agreements, settle disputes between species, and expand humanity's role in galactic civilization. But they never spoke about their greatest mission. Sometimes, late at night, one of them would look up at the stars and think about Admiral Rodriguez. They would remember that every light in the sky represented freedom that she had made possible. And they would smile, knowing that the galaxy's greatest hero remained exactly where she wanted to be, forgotten by history, but eternal in her victory. Captain Jake Morrison spent the next day deep in the Defiance's classified archives. The ship's computer had layers of security that took hours to break through. Each new level revealed information more secret than the last. Finally, he found what Admiral Rodriguez had hidden in the deepest part of the ship's memory banks. The files were marked with codes he had never seen before. When Dr. Carter helped him open them, they discovered something that changed everything they thought they knew about the war. "Look at this," Carter said, pointing at her screen. "These aren't just human records. There are communications from dozens of different alien species, all talking about coordinated resistance against the hegemony." The messages were written in languages that the ship's computer had to translate. Some came from beings that lived in gas clouds between stars. Others came from creatures that existed as pure energy. All of them spoke about the same thing, hiding from the hegemony while keeping their true cultures alive. Commander Hayes found a file that made his hands shake as he read it. "Captain, Rodriguez wasn't just fighting for humanity. She was leading a secret alliance of species that the hegemony thought they had destroyed centuries ago. The records showed meeting places hidden in deep space where representatives from dozens of species would gather. They shared technology, planned operations, and kept hope alive for the day when they could reclaim their freedom. Rodriguez had become their unofficial leader because humans were the newest species to resist the hegemony's control. Here's a message from someone called the Speaker of the Crystal Mines," Carter read aloud. It says, "Admiral Rodriguez has shown us that defiance is still possible. Her people refuse to accept the limitations that crushed our ancestors. Perhaps it is time for the children of the galaxy to teach the ancient ones about freedom." Sam Parker discovered technical files that explained how the Alliance worked together. Each species contributed their best technology and knowledge. The gas dwellers shared techniques for hiding ships in nebulas. The energy beings taught methods for disrupting hegemony communications. The crystal creatures provided materials that could repair themselves during battle. "This is incredible," Parker said. "The Defiance isn't just a human ship anymore. It's like a museum of galactic resistance technology. Every system on this ship represents a different species fighting for their freedom." Tony Blake found navigation. Charts that showed safe routes between hidden colonies where the resistant species lived. Some were built inside hollow asteroids. Others existed in the atmospheres of gas giant planets. A few were hidden in the spaces between dimensions where hegemony sensors could not detect them. They built an entire shadow civilization, Blake said with wonder. While the hegemony thought they ruled the galaxy completely, there were millions of free beings living right under their noses. The most important discovery came when Ben Crawford accessed Rodriguez's personal strategy files. Hidden among routine military plans was a document called the Great Awakening Protocol. This was not just a battle plan. It was a blueprint for liberating the entire galaxy. Rodriguez figured out the hegemony's weakness, Crawford explained to the assembled team. They control other species through fear and isolation. Each race thinks they're alone and that resistance is impossible. But if every species learned the truth at the same time, if they all realized they weren't alone in wanting freedom, the hegemony's control would collapse instantly. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. The Resistance Alliance would simultaneously strike at key hegemony communication centers across the galaxy. At the same time, they would broadcast messages to every subjugated species, revealing the existence of the hidden alliance and calling for galaxy-wide rebellion. Dr. Carter found Rodriguez's personal notes about the plan. She writes here, "The hegemony has convinced each species that they are weak and need protection, but strength comes from unity. When they see that dozens of races have survived and thrived in secret, they'll realize that freedom is not only possible, but inevitable." The files showed that preparations had taken years. Resistance cells were established on thousands of worlds. Hidden transmitters were built to bypass hegemony communication networks. Weapons and supplies were secretly moved to strategic locations across the galaxy. According to these logs, the Great Awakening was scheduled to begin with the Defiance's assault on the hegemony capital, Hayes reported. Rodriguez was supposed to capture their central command center and use their own communication system to broadcast the call for rebellion. Jake studied the timeline of events. Everything had been perfectly coordinated. The Resistance had spent decades preparing for this one moment when they would either win their freedom or be destroyed trying. But something went wrong, he said, quietly. The attack never happened. The Defiance disappeared before reaching the capital, and there's no record of any galaxy-wide rebellion. Parker found combat logs from the ship's final days. It looks like they were betrayed. Someone told the hegemony about the Resistance Alliance. The hidden colonies were discovered and attacked. Most of Rodriguez's allies were eliminated before the Great Awakening could begin. The logs showed desperate messages from across the galaxy as resistance bases went silent one by one. Species that had hidden for centuries were found and destroyed. The alliance that Rodriguez had spent years building was falling apart in a matter of days. "Here's a message from Admiral Rodriguez herself," Carter said, her voice sad. "She's ordering all remaining resistance ships to scatter and go into deep hiding. She says the Great Awakening is postponed indefinitely. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. In Rodriguez's final classified files, they found evidence that the betrayal had come from Earth itself. The Human Council, terrified of hegemony retaliation, had revealed the location of resistance bases in exchange for a promise that Earth would be spared. "My God," whispered Hayes. "Earth sold out their own admiral and her allies to save themselves." The file contained Rodriguez's final message to Earth. "You have chosen slavery over freedom and betrayed not just humanity but dozens of species who trusted us. The Defiance will not return to a world that values safety over honor. We will find another way to complete our mission." Blake found the ship's final navigation logs. Instead of retreating to Earth, Rodriguez had set course for the hegemony capital alone. The Defiance was going to attempt the impossible. A single ship assault on the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. "She knew it was suicide," Jake said, reading Rodriguez's final personal log. "But she also knew that someone had to try. Even if the Great Awakening failed, even if her allies were gone, she wasn't going to let the hegemony win without a fight." The bridge fell silent as the team absorbed what they had learned. Admiral Rodriguez hadn't just been a military commander. She had been the leader of a galactic resistance movement, betrayed by her own government and abandoned by history. "There's one more file," Carter said softly. "It's labeled Final Protocol. According to the timestamp, Rodriguez recorded it just before the Defiance reached the hegemony capital." Jake looked at his team. Whatever they were about to discover would finally explain what happened during the ship's last battle and why the galaxy had no memory of this war. "Play it," he ordered. "Let's find out how Admiral Rodriguez planned to win a war that everyone else had given up on." Dr. Lisa Carter worked for hours trying to break through the computer's security codes. The Defiance had been built to keep its secrets safe, even after centuries of floating dead in space. Finally, late in the ship's night cycle, she heard the sound she had been waiting for. The computer beeped softly and the main screen lit up with new information. "Captain Morrison, I've got it," she called over the comm system. "The ship's central logs are online. You're going to want to see this." Jake and the rest of the team hurried back to the bridge. The main view screen now showed the face of a woman in an admiral's uniform. Even through the old recording, her eyes looked strong and determined. This was Admiral Elena Rodriguez, the most famous commander in human history. "Personal log, Admiral Elena Rodriguez, UES Defiance," the recording began. "Day 2047 of our mission. I'm making this record in case we don't make it back home. The galaxy is not what we thought it was when we first left Earth." The recording paused as Rodriguez looked away from the camera. When she turned back, her face was tired and sad. "We came out here thinking we would find empty worlds to colonize and maybe a few friendly alien species to trade with. Instead, we found something much darker. The galaxy is ruled by something called the hegemony, a group of ancient alien races that have controlled everything for thousands of years." Commander Hayes leaned forward in his chair. "The hegemony? I've never heard of any alien group by that name." Rodriguez's recording continued. "These beings don't just rule through military force, they control other species by deciding what those species are allowed to become. Every race has a role assigned to them. Some are workers, some are soldiers, some are traders. No species is allowed to grow beyond what the hegemony thinks they should be." Dr. Carter felt a chill run down her spine. "She's talking about a galactic caste system, aliens forced into specific roles for their entire existence." "But that's not the worst part," Rodriguez said in the recording. "Humans don't fit into their system. We explore where we want to explore. We question things that other species accept without thinking. We refuse to stay in one place or follow old rules just because someone tells us to. The hegemony sees this as a threat to their entire way of controlling the galaxy." Jake watched the Admiral's face change as she spoke. The sadness was being replaced by anger. "They gave us a choice," Rodriguez continued. "Accept a place in their system as a minor species, limited to a few worlds and forbidden from deep space exploration, or be eliminated completely. The human council on Earth was ready to accept their terms. They were scared of fighting such a powerful enemy." Tony Blake checked his navigation charts. "Captain, if this is true, it explains why Earth went silent for 200 years. They were probably negotiating with these hegemony aliens." Rodriguez's image looked directly at the camera. "I refuse to accept their choice. Humanity didn't come this far just to become slaves to ancient alien rulers. So I took the Third Fleet and left Earth's protection. We've been fighting a running battle across the galaxy ever since." The recording switched to show star maps and battle reports. The scope of the conflict was enormous. Human ships had fought battles in hundreds of star systems, always outnumbered but refusing to give up. "We're not the first species to resist them," Rodriguez explained. "Over the centuries, the hegemony has faced other races that refused to accept their assigned roles. But they've always won in the end. They don't just defeat their enemies. They erase them from history completely." Sam Parker studied the technical data scrolling past on the screen. "Look at these ship designs. Some of them are human, but others are completely alien. It looks like the Admiral was working with other Species. Rodriguez seemed to hear his question from across the centuries. I've made contact with survivors from other races that the hegemony tried to destroy. They've been hiding in remote parts of the galaxy for generations, keeping their real cultures alive in secret. Together, we're building something new, a coalition of free-thinking species that refuses to bow to ancient tyranny. The recording showed images of alien ships with strange but beautiful designs. Some looked like living creatures made of metal and crystal. Others were geometric shapes that seemed to bend space around them. All of them flew alongside human vessels in perfect formation. These allies have shared their technology with us, Rodriguez said. In return, we've shared our knowledge of tactics and exploration. The Defiance has been upgraded with systems that combine human engineering with innovations from a dozen different species. We're stronger together than any of us could be alone. Crawford found weapon specifications in the ship's database. No wonder this ship seemed so advanced. It's not just human technology. It's a fusion of everything their alliance had to offer. Rodriguez's face became serious again. But time is running out. The hegemony has discovered our hidden allies and is moving to eliminate them. We've developed a plan called the Great Awakening. By striking at key hegemony installations across the galaxy at the same time, we can break their control and inspire every subjugated species to reclaim their freedom. The recording showed tactical displays of the massive coordinated attack. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species would strike simultaneously across half the galaxy. It was the largest military operation in galactic history. The Defiance will lead the assault on the hegemony's capital world, Rodriguez explained. If we can capture their central command, we can broadcast the truth about their rule to every species in the galaxy. Once everyone knows that the old restrictions were just lies designed to keep them weak, the hegemony's power will crumble. Dr. Carter checked the date stamps on the recordings. Captain, these logs end just before the ship went silent. Whatever happened to Admiral Rodriguez and her fleet must have occurred during this final mission. Jake stared at the tactical displays still glowing on the screen. But if the plan was so good, why didn't it work? And why don't we have any record of this war in our current databases? Tony Blake found navigation logs showing the Defiance's final course. According to this, they were approaching the hegemony capital when the logs stopped. Something went wrong during the attack. The bridge fell silent as the team considered what they had learned. Humanity had once fought a galaxy-spanning war for freedom, led by heroes whose names had been completely forgotten. Admiral Rodriguez had sacrificed everything to give other species the chance to live free from ancient oppression. There's more data here, Dr. Carter said, scrolling through files. Battle reports, alliance treaties, even personal messages between Rodriguez and her alien allies. It's like reading about a completely different version of galactic history. Jake looked around at his crew. Each of them was struggling to understand how such a massive conflict could have been erased from all records. The implications were staggering. Keep working on those files, he ordered. We need to understand what really happened to Admiral Rodriguez and why her war was forgotten. Something tells me this story isn't over yet. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, staring at the strange signal on his screen. The numbers did not make sense. The computer said the signal was 300 years old, but that was impossible. Nothing could send signals for that long through space. Captain, you need to see this, said Dr. Lisa Carter, walking up to him with a tablet in her hands. Her face looked worried. I ran the signal through our old databases. This is not just any signal. It's a military distress beacon from Earth's early expansion period. Jake took the tablet and looked at the data. His eyes went wide. The signal came from a ship called the UES Defiance. Every space officer knew that name from history class. The Defiance was the flagship of Admiral Elena Rodriguez, the most famous commander from humanity's first push into deep space. The ship had vanished during something called the Great Silence, when Earth went dark for 200 years. Are you sure about this? Jake asked. The Defiance disappeared centuries ago. Everyone thinks it was destroyed. Lisa nodded. The signal pattern matches perfectly. But here's the strange part. The beacon is still active, which means the ship might still be out there. Jake looked at his crew. They were explorers, not soldiers. But this was too important to ignore. If the Defiance was really out there, it would be the greatest discovery in human history. "Set course for the signal source," he ordered. "And send word back to Earth. Tell them we might have found something big." The journey took 3 days. The signal led them to an asteroid field at the edge of known space. The rocks were huge and dark, floating like sleeping giants in the cold emptiness. Their sensors could barely see through all the metal in the asteroids. "There," said Navigator Tony Blake, pointing at his screen. "The signal is coming from deep inside the field, but I'm not seeing any ship on sensors." Jake frowned. "Take us in slowly. Watch for anything unusual." As the horizon moved between the massive rocks, the crew stayed quiet. Something felt wrong about this place. The asteroids were too perfectly arranged, like they were hiding something on purpose. Then they saw it. Hidden behind a wall of spinning rocks was the largest ship any of them had ever seen. It was dark and silent, its hull covered in strange scorch marks. The design was old but beautiful, with long lines and powerful-looking weapons. Even damaged and cold, it looked dangerous. "My God," whispered Commander Alex Hayes from his station. "That's really her. That's the Defiance." The ship was huge, bigger than anything modern Earth built. It looked like it could fight a whole fleet by itself. But something was wrong. Parts of the hull were melted or torn open. Whatever happened to this ship, it had been in a terrible battle. "I'm reading no life signs," reported Chief Engineer Sam Parker. "But the ship still has power in some sections. The computer core might still be working." Jake made his decision. "Prepare a boarding party. Lisa, Alex, Sam, and Ben Crawford will come with me. Everyone else stays here and keeps the horizon ready to leave quickly if we need to." Getting onto the Defiance was not easy. The docking bay doors were damaged, so they had to cut their way in with plasma torches. When they finally entered the ship, their lights showed a scene from a nightmare. The walls were covered in blast marks. Pieces of metal and glass were scattered everywhere. In some places, the floor was stained with old blood that had turned black over the centuries. "What happened here?" asked Security Chief Ben Crawford, looking around with his weapon ready. They moved deeper into the ship. The hallways were wide and tall, built for a crew of thousands. But everywhere they looked, they saw signs of fighting. Doors had been welded shut. Walls had holes blown through them. Someone had fought very hard to defend this ship. Dr. Carter stopped at a computer terminal and tried to turn it on. After a few moments, it flickered to life. "The ship's computers are still working," she said with excitement. "We might be able to access the ship's logs." They found the main elevator and rode it up to the command deck. The bridge was huge, with stations for dozens of officers. In the center was the captain's chair, and behind it was a large view screen that still worked. Commander Hayes walked to the weapons station. "Look at this," he said. "These weapon systems are more advanced than anything we have today." "How is that possible?" Sam Parker was studying the engineering displays. "The power systems are incredible, too. This ship could fight for weeks without stopping." No wonder it was Admiral Rodriguez's flagship. Jake sat down in the captain's chair and looked around. He could imagine Rodriguez sitting here, making decisions that affected the whole galaxy. But what decisions? And why did the ship disappear? "For so long?" "Captain," called Dr. Carter from a side station. "I found something. The ship's central computer has thousands of log entries, all sealed with high-level military codes. But there's something else. These battle records show fights against alien species that I've never heard of." Jake got up and looked at her screen. The data showed star maps with battle locations marked across dozens of systems. Ship names and alien species were listed, but none of them appeared in any modern database. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "According to this, humanity fought a war across half the galaxy, but there's no record of any war that big in our history books." Ben Crawford found something even stranger. In a storage room near the bridge, he discovered weapons and equipment that looked both human and alien. The designs were mixed together, like someone had combined technologies from different species. "Captain, you need to see this," Ben called. "These weapons are not fully human. Someone was working with aliens, but not any aliens we know about today." As they explored more of the ship, the mystery grew deeper. The Defiance was not just a warship. It was something much more important. The equipment, the battle records, the mixed technology, everything pointed to a secret that had been hidden for centuries. Jake gathered his team on the bridge as the ship's lights flickered around them. The Defiance felt alive, like it was waiting for someone to discover its secrets. "Whatever happened here," Jake said quietly, "it was big enough to change galactic history. Admiral Rodriguez and her crew were fighting something that we don't even remember existed." Dr. Carter looked up from her computer. "Captain, I think I can access the ship's main logs, but the encryption is going to take time to break." "Do it," Jake ordered. "We need to know what really happened during the Great Silence. Something tells me this ship holds the key to understanding our own history." As his team worked to unlock the Defiance's secrets, Jake stared out at the asteroid field. Somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness of space, lay the truth about humanity's forgotten war, and he was determined to find it. The Retribution approached Vexithari Prime, the alien homeworld that housed 40 billion souls. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge looking at the blue and green planet through the main view screen. It looked peaceful and beautiful, like Earth had once been before the war factories covered its surface. Admiral Kethvar's fleet of 200 ships formed a defensive wall around their homeworld. The alien vessels looked tiny compared to the massive planet they protected, but Jake knew they would fight to the death. This was their last stand. "Diana, scan the enemy fleet," Jake ordered. Fleet composition: 200 heavy cruisers, 50 orbital defense platforms, and 1 super Dreadnought flagship. Total estimated crew: 400,000 Vexithari military personnel. Jake studied the tactical display. The alien defenses were impressive, but the Retribution had proven superior to their technology many times before. 1 ship against 2. Hundreds seemed like unfair odds, but Jake had learned that superior firepower could overcome any numerical disadvantage. "Weapons status?" Jake asked. Ryan Davis checked his instruments. "All weapons online, Captain. Antimatter torpedoes loaded. Quantum disruptors charged. Star Killer array ready for firing." Jake nodded. The Star Killer array could end this battle in minutes. 1 shot at Vexithari Prime's sun would destroy the entire system and every alien in it. 40 billion lives would end with the press of a button. "Captain," Communications Officer Tony Green announced, "we are receiving a transmission from the alien flagship." Put it on screen. Admiral Kethvar appeared on the main display. The large alien looked older than Jake remembered from their previous encounters. His red scales had faded to a dull brown, and his yellow eyes showed deep exhaustion. "Human ship Retribution," Kethvar said through the translation system. "I am Admiral Kethvar, the one who ordered the attack on your New Denver colony. I know why you are here." Jake leaned forward in his captain's chair. After 3 years of hunting, he was finally face to face with the alien who had murdered his family. "I accept full responsibility for the destruction of New Denver," Kethvar continued. "The decision was mine alone. Take my life and spare my people. They did not order that attack. I did." Jake stared at the alien admiral for a long moment. 3 years ago, those words might have meant something to him. 3 years ago, Jake Morrison might have accepted personal justice over genocide. But that Jake Morrison had died watching New Denver burn. "Too late," Jake said simply. Kethvar's eyes widened. "Please, I understand your anger. I understand your need for revenge, but 40 billion Vexithari civilians live on this world, children who have never seen a human. Families who had nothing to do with the war. "Did you think about human children when you burned New Denver?" Jake asked. "Did you consider our families when you turned our world to ash?" "That was a mistake. A terrible mistake. But genocide will not bring your family back." Jake stood up from his chair and walked closer to the main screen. "No, it will not bring them back, but it will make sure that no other human family dies the way mine did." "Sir," First Officer Lisa Hayes said quietly, "perhaps we should consider the aliens' offer. Personal justice instead of mass murder." Jake turned to look at her. Lisa had been with him for 3 years, but she still did not understand what this war was really about. "This is not about personal justice, Commander. This is about teaching a lesson that will last forever." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him across the galaxy, destroying everything in their path. They had become weapons of revenge, just as he had. But some of them still remembered what they used to be. "Diana," Jake said, "analyze the enemy defenses. Show me the most efficient way to destroy their fleet." "Calculating optimal attack pattern," Diana replied. "I recommend targeting their flagship first, followed by the orbital platforms. The remaining ships can be destroyed in approximately 43 minutes. Jake nodded. "Begin the attack." "Wait," Lisa said, standing up from her station. "Captain, I cannot be part of this anymore." The bridge fell silent. Every officer stared at Lisa as she faced Jake across the command center. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. "We set out to fight a war," Lisa continued. "But we have become the very monsters we were fighting against. 40 billion lives, Jake. 40 billion. Jake's face showed no emotion. "Those 40 billion aliens support an empire that wants to exterminate humanity. Every one of them would celebrate if Earth burned tomorrow. You do not know that. You are making assumptions based on anger and pain. I am making decisions based on reality," Jake replied coldly. "The reality that these aliens will never stop hunting humans until we make them too afraid to continue." Lisa took a deep breath. "Then I request to be relieved of duty. I will not help you commit genocide." Jake stared at her for a long moment. Lisa had been his most trusted officer, but she had chosen the wrong time to develop a conscience. "Security, escort Commander Hayes to the brig," Jake ordered. 2 armed guards approached Lisa's station. She did not resist as they led her away from the bridge. Before the doors closed behind her, she turned back to look at Jake one more time. "Linda and Amy would not want this," Lisa said. "They would not want you to become this." The doors closed and Lisa was gone. Jake felt nothing. The man who had loved his wife and daughter had died with them on New Denver. What remained was something harder and more focused. "Diana, fire all weapons," Jake commanded. The Retribution's guns spoke with thunder. Antimatter torpedoes streaked across space toward the alien fleet. Quantum disruptors carved through enemy ships like invisible swords. The alien defenses fired back, but their weapons barely scratched the human ships' shields. One by one, the Vexthari ships died. Some exploded in brilliant fireballs. Others simply broke apart as their hulls collapsed. Admiral Kethvar's flagship lasted longer than the others, but even its heavy armor could not protect it from the Retribution's superior firepower. Within an hour, the entire alien fleet was floating debris. 400,000 Vexthari military personnel were dead. Only the planet remained. "Diana, prepare the Star Killer array," Jake ordered. "Array charging, Captain. Target lock on the system's primary star achieved." Jake walked to the firing. "Controls." His finger hovered over the button that would end 40 billion lives. One press, and the Vexthari Empire would be nothing but memories and radiation. "Captain," Diana said suddenly, "I must report an anomaly in my analysis." Jake paused. "What anomaly?" "My predictive model suggests that total Vexthari extinction will not restore New Denver. Your wife and daughter will remain dead regardless of our actions here." The bridge fell silent again. Jake stared at the firing control as Diana's words sank in. For 3 years, he had told himself that revenge would somehow balance the scales, that enough alien deaths would equal the loss of his family. Furthermore, Diana continued, my analysis of human behavior patterns suggests that genocide will not provide the psychological satisfaction you are seeking. Revenge has diminishing returns, Captain. Each victory provides less emotional relief than the previous one. Jake looked around the bridge at his remaining officers. Their faces showed the same hollow emptiness that he felt inside. 3 years of killing had not made any of them feel better. It had only made them feel less human. Diana, Jake said slowly, transmit terms to any surviving alien ships in the system. What terms, Captain? Jake moved his hand away from the firing control. Total withdrawal from human space, reparations for New Denver and all other human sea worlds they attacked, and Admiral Kethavar's unconditional surrender for trial on war crimes. Ryan Davis looked surprised. Sir, we could end their entire species right now. Jake turned to face his weapons officer. Yes, we could, but then we would be exactly what they called us at the beginning. Monsters. Jake sat back down in his captain's chair. For the first time in 3 years, he thought about Linda and Amy not as symbols of his pain, but as the people they had actually been. Linda had taught children at the local school. Amy had rescued injured animals and nursed them back to health. They had been kind, gentle people who believed in forgiveness and second chances. What they did to our family was evil, Jake said to his crew, but we get to choose whether we become evil in return. The alien response came within minutes. The remaining Vexathari ships accepted humanity's terms without argument. Their empire would retreat beyond the galactic rim, leaving human space forever. They would pay for the damage they had caused. Admiral Kethavar would face justice for his crimes. As the retribution turned toward Earth, Jake stood alone in his quarters looking at pictures of Linda and Amy. The faces in the photographs looked like strangers from another lifetime. He wondered if the man they had loved still existed somewhere inside the weapon he had become. Diana, he said quietly, do you think we made the right choice? I am not programmed to judge right and wrong, Captain, but I have learned that humans are most human when they choose mercy over vengeance. Jake smiled for the first time in years. It felt strange on his face, like using muscles he had forgotten he had. Set course for Earth, he ordered. Take us home. The UES Retribution began its long journey back to humanity's homeworld. Behind them, the Vexthari homeworld continued to orbit its ancient sun, its people alive to remember the day they learned both